We have some big news to discuss today as the Charlotte Hornets have made Gordon Hayward available for trade, and the Miami Heat are among teams linked to the former star. So I'm going to break that down in this episode of Heat Digest, as well as discuss Dwayne Wade. It has been revealed that a statue will be given to him. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. We are on the road to 250, and we're very close right now, and 98% of you who are watching are not subscribed. So if you aren't already, scroll down and hit that button. All right, Houston, some good news, some interesting stuff to discuss today. And let's get into the first topic, which is the Heat are linked to Gordon Hayward. So we have a few things to discuss regarding this, report. And it came out a couple days ago, as you can see on the screen now, that essentially the Hornets have made Gordon Hayward available for trade, and teams are also watching for a possible buyout. And if you look back, we know the Heat have been linked to him multiple times. There's another report coming out, which I'll show you in a second. But Houston, I just want to get your initial thoughts on this. Do you think Gordon Hayward makes sense for a trade, or do you think it would make more sense for a potential buyout? And do you think he would move the needle at all for the Miami Heat team right now that is, I guess, kind of undergoing a bit of injury, especially with Jaime Jaquez lately?
Yeah, so Gordon Hayward would be a great piece. I don't know how big his price tag would be if they were to trade for him. I couldn't imagine it being all that much larger than like just another role player somewhere in the NBA, but he'd be a good piece for the Miami Heat. He would probably be coming off the bench for the majority of the games he would play in, looking for a little bit of offense from him. Besides that, wouldn't really see him playing that big of a role. Just another role player coming off the bench and doing what's asked of him.
Yeah, and I don't know how, again, you mentioned the price tag. It says here teams are watching for a possible buyout. So if a buyout is even in the question, I don't think any teams would want to give up a first round pick or whatever it might take. And looking at his stats now, he used to be very, very good with obviously the Jazz, was decent with Boston, and he's kind of had a
Yeah.
steady decline to a degree. He's still a decent player, but he's not the player he used to be. He's playing 32 minutes a game starting for the Hornets. But like you mentioned, he'd probably be a bench piece for this team. Give him a spark off the bench, shooting the ball. He's shooting 36% from three, so he would kind of be a bit of a spark plug, but I don't know if the Heat would be willing to use any assets. I mean, you mentioned maybe a couple. I don't know. Like the Heat want to make a big splash. We've seen reports about it. And Gordon Hayward, although his name is probably bigger name than some of the other guys, I don't know if he would be considered a big enough splash for the Heat to give up any sort of assets for. A possible buyout could be very interesting. Though at the same time, he's still averaging 14 a game. There's still a lot of teams that I think would maybe give up a good, decent pick for him. I just don't know if the Heat, it makes the most sense for them, especially with a lot of the scores they already have on their team.
Yeah, he if the buyout seems like the most likely option because Charlotte would definitely want to get as much back for him as possible. And really for anyone they do give up this season before the trade deadline due to what they really need on their end of the side of things. But if we did go get him, I definitely see him as another bench piece playing good minutes, not great minutes. And again, just a scoring option, playing his role, playing defense when asked to. But really, that's really it from Gordon Hayward, honestly, in my opinion. I don't think he would be asked to become another star, have another Jazz type of run, or even a Boston Celtic type of run.
Yeah, and he doesn't move the needle too much, but at the same time, if the Heat make another move, it could be interesting. And let's look into a couple of reports here. This one was from later in December, but it just kind of shows that the Heat have been linked to him a lot. NBA executive links Gordon Hayward to the Miami Heat and essentially just says that the Heat could reportedly have renewed interest in a player they have tried to land in the past, with an NBA executive naming Hayward of the Charlotte Hornets as a possible trade target. And again, that was a bit earlier on in the season. He's still a decent player. I just don't think when push comes to shove, Hayward's going to be the guy that, again, he's 33 years old. Like, he's still not a bad player. I just don't know if I do know, he's not the missing piece for this Miami Heat team. When you're looking at other players like Donovan Mitchell, DeJounte Murray, all these guys, D'Angelo Russell, that the Heat have been linked to, I guess D'Angelo Russell to a lesser degree, I think the Heat and Pat Riley are going to strive for bigger, and I don't know that this would be the big move. And I also don't think that they are necessarily out of it. I think they could get a big guy like Donovan Mitchell. They could still bring in a veteran like Gordon Hayward. So any quick final thoughts on this before we move on to a bit of an interesting one with Pat Riley and Dwayne Wade?
No, just it should be interesting what Miami ends up doing, whether it be for Gordon Hayward or any of the guys you did just mention, as we are sitting in such a, I want to call it a prime spot, but it's really just an interesting spot as we have so many good role players, and then we do have the three or four stars on our team. It would be interesting to see what plays we do end up making. The buyout makes it a hell of a lot more interesting, especially when dealing with Gordon Hayward, him being the player he is with the past that he has connected with the Heat. it'll be interesting to see what Miami ends up doing.
Yeah, one question I'm going to pose you before we move on is, would you rather get Hayward for very, very cheap or a buyout, or would you rather give up some assets for Zach LaVine? Just going to throw that out there before we move on, because, I mean, LaVine is in theory the better player, but do you think LaVine would move the needle more than Gordon Hayward, given the assets you'd had to give up? Just going to throw that out there as a potential question.
I would personally, I'm taking Gordon Hayward every single time. And the reason being the price tag is significantly smaller for Gordon Hayward than Zach LaVine, obviously. And I know the defense, which is the biggest piece out of no matter who we bring in, I feel like it's not going to be good or great from either of those players, but Hayward will be able to be okay with coming off the bench. I feel like if we brought LaVine in, minutes would become problematic with everybody, and there's no way we're probably going to ask him to come off the bench.
Yeah.
LaVine, that is.
Yeah, I think LaVine doesn't fit for many teams. The Heat are also one where I think they're going to strive a bit bigger, and Gordon Hayward specifically would definitely play a bench role going forward. So let us know in the comments that question. You can answer the one that Houston answered as well. I think I tend to agree. I'd rather given the actual monetary value. Let's move on now to the Dwayne Wade statue. In Houston, the Heat are playing okay as of late. They're doing these things, and there was a bit of a surprise in their yesterday's game when Pat Riley surprises Dwayne Wade with an announcement of a statue coming outside of the center. Wade will be the first statue in Miami Heat franchise history. Do you think this? We don't have to talk about this for too long, but what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on Dwayne Wade, I guess, his legacy as a Miami Heat player? And do you think this was a cool ceremony? I think it was pretty well done by Pat Riley, who's one of the better ones in the league.
Yeah, I think it was very appropriate. If anyone's deserving of it, it's Dwayne Wade, obviously. It's Wade County, basically, down there. And he's Dwayne Wade. He's when you think Miami Heat, he's the first name that really comes to mind, regardless of you being a casual fan or a diehard fan. And the statue's well deserved. And the biggest question for me is what moment will be will the statue be?
Yeah.
So will it be the lob to LeBron? Will it be him celebrating his game-winning three over the Lakers? What will it be is my biggest question.
Yeah, and when you see the Wade jersey behind you, every Heat fan has a Wade jersey, and it was well done by the Heat. I mean, they're one of the most established franchises. They always do great things like this, and the first statue in Heat history is a little bit of not a shock necessarily, but I'm sure it's a big honor for Dwayne Wade to get that. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that he finally got something. And it was an interesting way to reveal it. And the moment thing is going to be very, very interesting as well. And we could use a prime Dwayne Wade in the Miami Heat right now and going forward. But I don't know. It's a very interesting time. And you mentioned it a couple of seconds ago, just to circle back. The Heat are kind of in limbo right now. Obviously, they have the assets to go for a big star. All the big stars, or a lot of them, want to come to Miami. I can guarantee you Zach LaVine would be more than willing to come to Miami in a heartbeat leaving Chicago. But the question is what they get done. And before we wrap it up, just a quick prediction. Do you have a prediction on what player the Miami Heat are going to be pursuing going forward, or do you hold out and see what they do at the deadline?
Oh, if I had to guess with what we're dealing with right now, I'm going to say Gordon Hayward, but that is a very, very, very broad guess, I'll say. Just because the buyout, it makes it very interesting.
It does, and let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. I think Gordon Hayward, very intriguing option, especially if they have to give up no assets, because I don't think Pat Riley will want to give up an asset for that. But thank you guys for watching. See you tomorrow.